Are you new to teaching data science and the tech side feels just a little intimidating? Well, you are in the right place. I'm Jennifer from Solfinity, and today I'm going to be walking you through a step-by-step tutorial for data cleaning in Google Sheets. Now, this is the first video in a series designed to build your confidence with the tools your students will be using, like Google Sheets, Google Colab, a little Python, and even Tableau. Now, I've spent more than 25 years in the math classroom, and now as a math coach, I understand what it feels like to be just one unit or even sometimes one lesson ahead of your students when you're teaching something new. And that's why my goal is to help you feel prepared and supported and confident as you learn right alongside your students. So if you want to work through the demo along with me, you can pause now and grab the sample data set from the link in the description below. Later on, I'll also show you how to get the student handouts and even the teacher lesson plan that I created to go along with this activity. Are you ready? Let's get started. So here we have our simple sample data set. Students threw a ball of paper and recorded what type it was, how far it went, which hand they used, and whether they threw it overhand or underhand. And before we keep going, I want you to take a moment and see if you can identify any potential problems with the data set. Feel free to pause the video if you need to take a better look. Now, before we can sort, graph, or analyze any of the data, data cleaning is unfortunately part of the process. So we want to build good data cleaning habits with our students. And the first step in that is going to be preserving the original data set. So down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see we have the different sheets that are each labeled with tabs. Your students may only have the first one, and that's okay. You're going to click the little down arrow and duplicate this first sheet. So then I'm going to go back and double click on the name of it. And I'm just going to call that my original data. That way I know that I'm not going to overwrite it with anything. The second tab, double click it, and I'm going to call that cleaned data. Now, the first issue we'll tackle is one you probably didn't notice. There are a few instances of extra white space within the data set. One example is here in B10, there's an extra space after the word printer. So fortunately, this is probably the easiest thing to take care of. First thing we're going to do is select the entire sheet, go up to the data menu, down to data cleanup, and choose trim whitespace. And you will see that the whitespace was trimmed from 2 cells, and those were actually E2 and B10. Now, I would have the students record the changes that they made as a way to show their work, but also be good data scientists. So you may have noticed I have this cleaning log template at the bottom, and it has drop downs for the action that they took and what they did and why. This is what it looks like all filled out with that first line for trimming white space. I do have these included as part of that teacher lesson plan, but for purposes of this tutorial, I'm not going to go through and record every line. Now, another big part of data cleaning is formatting. And you'll notice that there's a lot of issues with capitalization, and there's actually 3 things that we can do in Google Sheets to fix this. It is a little bit different than the way that you do it in Excel. But the first thing I'm going to do is look at this paper type. And I'm going to click on column B, and I'm going to insert 1 column to the right. So now I'm going to call cell C1 paper type upper, and you might have to drag to make it fit. And down below that, I'm going to use our first formula. So I'm going to type the equal sign to say it's a formula, and upper, parenthesis, and I want to make notebook uppercase. So when I click on B2 and press enter, you'll see that it made everything capitalized. Now, it is suggesting an autofill, which I will accept, but you'll notice that it stopped right here because there is a blank line. And I did that on purpose because oftentimes you actually want to delete out the blank lines before you go through and do the uppercase and lowercase. But for illustration purposes for your students, you may want to let them see what happens when they have a blank line. But I can go ahead and just click on that little blue circle and drag it down, and it will fill in the rest of the words. Now you're going to repeat those steps with the hand used and the throwing style. I went ahead and already did it to show you that if you don't want everything uppercase, we also have lower, which will make everything lowercase. And for the throwing style, I called it proper because that is the formula. So proper will capitalize the first letter of each word. So next we're going to look at the distance column, and you never want to have the units and the numbers within the same cell. So I'm going to go ahead in this header row and change distance to distance underscore cm so that we preserve that it's centimeters. And next we're going to use the find and replace tool to get rid of the cm and the centimeters down below. Before we actually do that, let me show you the options for find and replace, because it is a point that your students may make some mistakes. So in general, we're going to find CM and replace it with nothing. If I choose all sheets, it's going to change the original data set as well, and we don't want that. If I choose this sheet, better choice, but it's also going to replace that CM that I have up in my header row. So a better choice is going to be to click and drag to highlight all of the cells that we want to change. So find and replace, and again, it's CM and we're replacing it with nothing. And notice it's the specific range. Replace all, done, and you see that it got rid of those. And we're going to go ahead and do the same with centimeters. Now you may notice that all of the numbers have jumped over to being right justified, which means that Google Sheets is reading it as a number. If it's reading it as text, it left justifies it. Just in case you ever run into a situation where it's not right justifying even after you delete, you can go up to the format menu and down to number, and then actually change it, force it to be a number. In this case, it gave me decimal points, but you can also make that custom. So I went ahead and tried the same find and replace trick with the L in the hand used lower column, but it found no matches. Can you figure out why? The hint is actually right here. Remember how we used the formula to change all of these to lowercase? In this cell is not really the word right or the word left. There's a formula in there. Now you may notice that there's a little checkbox here that will search within formulas. But if I click that, it's actually going to change the L in the word lower to left. And that's not what we want either. So instead, we want to lock in these entries instead of the formulas. So keep that highlighted. We're going to go to Edit, Copy, and then Edit, Paste Special, and Values Only. And that is going to change these values. Now you see, instead of the formulas up here, we have the actual words, and we could use find and replace, but again, it's going to try to replace the L in left with the word left. So in this case, it's better just to go ahead and type the word left. So I went ahead and did the same thing in column C and in column H and replaced all of the formulas with values, and I also fixed the two-word underhand. Now you might be thinking, and your students are probably thinking, that this is taking a really long time and there has to be a better way to do this. And there is, and that's why we're going to go in and teach them some of the Python tools and other tools that I'm going to have later in the series. But for now, we're showing them in Google Sheets because we have a small enough data set and we're really showing them the mechanics of what's going on. The good news is we are almost done. We just have a little bit of blank spaces and a little more cleanup to finish up. Now, I said earlier that normally we would delete empty rows at the beginning, but I left it in, and you may choose to leave it in with your students just to show what happens when you fill down. But in order to delete the row, we just right-click on it and click Delete Row. Next, we're going to deal with these blank cells. And I'm just going to go ahead and type in missing where the blank cells are. And in another video, I'm going to show you how that actually affects the data. But for now, we're just going to type missing. Some sort of optional cleanup steps at this point are making sure all of your headers have the same format. So I'm going to go ahead and add an underscore in between student and name, because those underscores are going to help us later if we are exporting this and importing it into some other program. The other thing you can do is either hide or delete the paper type and hand use columns and the throwing style. because we have these helper columns and the original columns are already saved in the original data. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, all of the data sets are available via the link down in the description. And also all these links are on solvefinity.com. As promised, I do have some resources for you. You can go ahead and grab the free handout that is basically a warm-up that you would do before the lesson, having the students sort of circle or highlight what looks inconsistent, and there's some follow-up questions. On my website, I also have links to download a quick reference sheet that comes as part of the teacher guide bundle, and that is a 10-page lesson plan with standards and accessibility tips and extension questions as well. If this video helped you save a little precious planning time or maybe your sanity, go ahead and click the like button so that it can get discovered by other teachers who might need the same win. Now, if you click the subscribe button, you'll get notified when the next video in the series comes out. You are doing great. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today.